The current flooding in Lismore and Byron Bay highlight a real problem that every Australian eventually will feel. The Insurance Council today told us that as of Friday last week, there had been close to 25,000 motor vehicle claims because of the floods. That's around 15% of all claims. Now, that number seems set to soar with the inundation in the past couple of days, which you really can see around that Lismore area is quite tragic. But the need to replace those vehicles adds to the pressure to supply even more cars and also even on the price of cars at a time when supply chain issues and computer chip shortages have already led to long waits. Let's bring in here Tony Webber, the Chief Executive of the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries. Tony, thanks for your time as always. Look, I just recognise that, this is almost the worst time to have a lot of cars taken out of action, because the difficulty in trying to get a car is very tough. And a lot of those people in those flood-affected areas will also need their vehicles back in due course.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The problem we've had for some time has been the demand for vehicles outstrips supply because of a number of issues around the world, and it is a global issue. The lack of supply around the world is from microprocessor shortages, driven by the demand for microprocessors from the car industry and other electronic industries around the world. We also have the impact of COVID closing factories that produce cars around the world and closing those factories, so that reduces supply. And we also have shipping issues. You put that all together with what was already strong demand, and now all these very unfortunate people in the flood-affected areas, who my heart goes out to, also requiring new cars, is going to put further pressure in the system.
Yeah, just what you're hearing already in terms of the supply shortages and the amount of time it's taking for people to get those new cars right now. What's the word you're hearing from the dealers, from the automotive industry?
Well, it just depends on the vehicle that you want. Some vehicles are available immediately, and others you're looking at delivery times in 2023 for an order today. So it varies dramatically, but there is no doubt that there is a supply shortage right across the market.
Okay, so the other thing I've also seen and heard about is dealers around that Lismore area that have literally had all of their stock, all their inventory wiped out with these floods. That again makes it even difficult for people in those flood-affected areas to get a car when the dealers themselves are going to struggle to get vehicles.
Yeah, well, the impact on dealers across the entire market in Australia would be pretty minimal, but clearly those dealers have lost their stock. The real problem here is that demand outstrips supply dramatically, and that was prior to the floods, and this just exacerbates the issue.
Okay, so one of the things that I saw, and this was about the United States, not Australia, was just the enormous price increases in new car prices and also second-hand car prices. We've seen similar things here, but this was a significant contributor to inflation, which is, of course, leading then to interest rates rising. Now, we are clearly seeing quite the same thing happening here. Is that what the industry is telling you?
Well, what I'm hearing from the industry is that the prices haven't gone up in Australia. The problem we have is that not the ticket price hasn't gone up, but the deals that you quite often get when you go in and negotiate, those deals are not there because someone else wants to buy the car that you want. So I think that's where the great pressure is. But we must understand, as this goes further, maintaining prices down is going to be difficult because it is an international issue that we're talking about, not just a domestic issue.
And then even more recently in the past week, we've seen the lockdowns in places such as Shanghai and China. And of course, those areas around Shanghai are very big vehicle manufacturers. So this again could exacerbate not just the problem here in Australia, but around the world.
Yeah, I think that's a really pertinent point. And Shanghai, not only is it a big vehicle manufacturing area, but it's a very important area worldwide for the supply of the computer chips. So it's not just the vehicle where the vehicle's manufactured, it's where the components that go to making that manufactured vehicle come from. So if the supply chain of microchips is impacted, the whole vehicle production line stops. So that puts further pressure into what is already a difficult marketplace.
And just very quickly, is there any light on the horizon? Is there anything at all that might presume that maybe some of this will ease?
Well, the big change, the two great pressures are COVID which is the unknown. And the second one is the computer chip issue. Now, the computer chip issue has been in play for some time. So therefore, we're hoping that supply will come online to actually address that part of the problem. So that is, in the shorter term, something that we can see an answer to. COVID obviously is a health issue and it's the great unknown.